Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Follett House Friday. My name is Jeremy, and I'm the Museum Services Manager of the Sandusky Library and Follett House Museum. I hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. So today I was trying to decide what would be kind of interesting or fitting, and considering all of the awfulness with the coronavirus going on, something that I felt kind of fitting was to talk a little bit about an artifact we have in our collection that I'll hold up here. So this is a measles placard, as you can see. We're not 100% sure what year it's from. My best guess is late 1800s, early 1900s. And these would be placed on someone's door the family member in the house has the measles. And it's basically a quarantine sign. The idea was to prevent people who have never had the measles from entering so they don't get it and then spread it around. It also indicates that people from that household shouldn't leave the house to make sure that they don't spread it in the community. I know we think, of course, there's been a lot of talk about quarantining and everything. We might think of it more as a modern invention, but quarantining has been around for hundreds of years, going back to Italy, if I remember correctly, and quarantining ships to make sure they didn't bring diseases into the city. That became popular in the New World as well, quarantining ships that may carry certain diseases. In the 1800s, mid to late 1800s, one of the big diseases they quarantined ships against was cholera. And of course, Sandusky had its own big cholera epidemics that we had to suffer through. But they quarantined for other things too. I have an article here from I think this one was from the Register in 1887, which talks about a quarantine down in Norwalk. I'll read it real quick. Norwalk is thoroughly alarmed over the more malignant form of Scarlet Fever raging here. Over a dozen cases are reported in the immediate vicinity of the Colored Church, and the rapid spread of it is believed to be due to a few scholars attending school while in the early stages of the disease. The Board of Health is taking actions to quarantine against it in houses containing our placarded, kind of like the one we just saw. This one said measles. They would have either quarantine or it might say Scarlet Fever. Sunday communication from the Board of Health was read in each church advising congregations to remain away from funerals of persons dying of the fever. They actually took it a little bit further. I have an article from the Register from 1898 where the Board of Health put out a whole bunch of different regulations to enforce health and safety measures in Sandusky. And there's several that deal with diseases, and one of them is regarding quarantining houses. And for each one, it not only defines what quarantining is and how it should be done, but for each disease, there's a different length of time that the person who is sick with the disease has to quarantine, how long the people in the household have to quarantine, that after the illness and the quarantine is over for the household, the entire house has to be sanitized. They also talk about funeral arrangements for people who die of infectious diseases to make sure that it doesn't spread any further. So quarantining really is not a new concept. It's been, like I said, around for hundreds of years. In America, it's been around since before the American Revolution with some of the smallpox epidemics that were raging. And it's interesting that it's hard to tell, but this is made out of like a cardboard almost. And so, these signs weren't made to last forever. They were made to last for a small period of time just to perform their duty. So it's really interesting that we actually have a piece of this kind of history of this, I want to call it like early health department, public health history that's from Sandusky that has survived. And I've never seen another placard in like this before. I knew they existed. I knew a little bit of the history. I just pulled two examples out of the newspaper just to kind of highlight and show that this was happening locally for different diseases. But it's fascinating to me that someone decided to keep this. I have no idea why someone decided to keep it, or and how it got handed down and eventually got to the museum, which is amazing. And it is really a great way to kind of, once again, connect to what's happening today, to historical events, and have a physical proof beyond just newspaper accounts of what happened and how they tried to contain viruses in the 17 and 1800s in the United States. And of course, like I said, it was probably from the 1800s, early 1900s here. And what's even more fascinating, of course, is they were doing this, at least in the mid to kind of late-ish 1800s, without a real clear understanding of germ theory. So it's that they kind of understood if you're around sick people, you can get sick. They didn't understand, of course, how it works, like we do today, where we know germs and viruses and bacteria and everything else. But it's interesting that they put these measures in place to make sure that they were enforced, and to try and just promote public health and make it better for everyone. So if you guys have any questions, I didn't see any during this, but I may have missed them. If I did, I apologize. I will answer them when this is over. If you have any comments or questions or you're watching it later, feel free to leave your comments below. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. And thank you for joining us for another Follett House Friday, and we hope you enjoy your weekend. That's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Thanks for joining us.